is the sideshow. This isn't the main event. I was so used to it, I was just on a roll.
Yeah.
Oh, man. Ryan Baldwin coming to you live from somewhere above Earth's orbit.
Wow, outer space, man.
Yes, I'm getting pretty good connection from here, too. You know, not too bad ping.
Satellites.
Yes, I'm surrounded by satellites. Meanwhile, down in Texarkana, good old Mason Shepherd with the new hat
sir.
for the day, which is Dragon Ball Super.
Dragon Ball Super. Yeah,
Yes.
got Goku and Beerus on it. So yeah.
There you go, just expanding the nerddom. Yeah. After wearing the same two hats in a row, had to switch it up this time.
I had to wear my Flash hat, man. But it's crazy how that works out. And speaking of going by in a Flash, NBA.
That was a reach because there's barely been anything happening.
That's the point.
Well, since we last talked on July 1st, only really two major deals, I would say. There's only been two of them that have really kind of been of any interest. Zion Williamson, like we were contemplating on whether he would actually make it on his extension, and sure enough, the Pelicans wrapped him up 5 years, $193 million, with up to 231. So basically the max contract that all the rookies that all top superstar rookies are getting. He got that one, and so now it really is up to Zion, and he now has the entire future of the franchise on his back because the Pelicans are committed at this point to him. Like if he doesn't work out, there's no bailing out of this for at least maybe 3 years. Maybe then you could ship him off somewhere and have somebody else pick up his contract. But if it doesn't work out, Pelicans are on the hook. No ifs, ands, or buts. It comes down to whether he can play and stay healthy.
Yeah, and when we talked about this the last time we discussed it, I said that this is we both kind of knew that they were going to do what they did with his new deal. And I said the reason they would is because it's a lot easier to judge someone contract-wise based off performance, where it's like, excuse me, okay, they didn't produce, we would like to bring them back, but, they're not worth X amount of money or whatever the case. It's a lot harder when someone has that talent and everybody sees that, knows that, but at the same time, they're their own worst enemy. So you're not paying them, or their contract is not based off of talent production only, as it would be if it was just talent. It's based off of their motivation and your belief that they will get their head on straight and, turn it around, turn his diet around, start training, stay healthy. So the Pelicans put all their chips in on this kid, and they better hope it's worth it. That's all anybody can really say, because they're stuck with him now.
Yep.
So,
and then the other big deal that happened on July 2nd was Darius Garland for the Cleveland Cavaliers, who was an all-star last year, got a 5-year rookie contract extension max deal as well. And so he had some pretty solid numbers. I mean, it's the Cavaliers, but the thing about the Cavaliers now is, they were in the play-in tournament, I believe. Yeah, they were in the play-in tournament, lost to the Hawks, but they have a nice young core to build around. And I believe they just re-signed Ricky Rubio as well, who's a nice veteran presence. So couple more years, you could see this team start to, make some moves up into that. I mean, it's going to be a while before they get up into that upper echelon of the East, of course. I'm not saying they're not about to go 1, 2, or 3.
There is no LeBron on that team.
There's no LeBron to carry anymore. But I think, with these kinds of moves and with these development of these players, if they turn out that well, you could easily, see a bottom 4 instead of play-in tournament. You make the playoffs. That's kind of my expectation for him over the next few years.
I would say that, with Cleveland, I can say that we could kind of see the two teams that you can never really count out, even if there's not big stars there, are Miami and Cleveland, because they're on the same level of, sure, there may not be a Dwayne Wade or a LeBron James, but they're always going to get a good core group of players some way, somehow. And they're never going to be as low as the Pistons or the Kings or the Knicks or the Nets, but they're not going to reach, the Warriors or the Celtics or whatever that status, but they're going to be in that middle ground to, like, with what you said, where they can elevate the more pieces they put together. And one thing that I've noticed with these teams that helps consistent coaches. Now that says more for Miami because Eric Spoelstra's been there for a long time and he's
Sure.
a fantastic coach. Cleveland has had coaches come in and out, but it's at a longer period of time. Not all the time, but just it's been more prevalent that, okay, we've got this coach and he's going to be with us 4 years. We're not going to run him off in 2, like what happens in a lot of these organizations where a coach is there for a couple years and then he's booted over bad seasons. So I agree with you that Cleveland will be a team to look out for, and it'll be another team where LeBron has been left and they're able to survive without him. So
then that leaves the big 3, still futures undecided. James Harden still has not signed a deal to go back to the 76ers, although speculation is that he will.
Yeah.
Kyrie did opt into his $365 million player option, but is expected to maybe not be there. And Kevin Durant definitely does not want to be in Brooklyn because he asked for a trade. So there's been rumblings of Kyrie going to LA to the Lakers because he was spotted in LA recently, like in the past couple of days. So there's some speculation that Kyrie is trying to hook back up with LeBron. The only issue with that is that I think that there's no way the Nets will trade Kyrie for Westbrook's like straight up. Like you got to throw in pick or some other player or something. If they do that, then I could totally see that for a 1-year deal. I mean, Westbrook is just an expiring contract. It's a hefty contract, but you get a draft pick out. Maybe he can do a little something still with some of your players that you're getting back and signing on the younger players. And then if you get Durant out the door and get some stuff back for him, you're basically in full rebuild at that point. But at least you got somebody that'll fill the seats maybe with Russell Westbrook. But,
I think it now I will say this. If Russell Westbrook, if that trade maybe does happen, Durant is definitely out because Durant he's not going to go from someone he really wants to play with to a guy who, when he returned to Oklahoma City, called him Cupcake. He's not doing that. With Russell Westbrook and Kyrie Irving, with that potential being there, honestly, I can't say it's and I'm pulling a Ryan here. I don't say that either team wins in that scenario because if you're the Nets, you don't know if this happens. If you're the Nets, you don't know which Russell Westbrook you're getting. It could be the one that was Westbrook, or you get Westbrook. You don't know which one you're getting. And with the Lakers, sure, Kyrie may come to your team. Who says he's going to have his mental faculties in order for him to get on the court?
Exactly.
So I don't. If that does happen, I can't say any team won with those guys alone.
I agree, and I also think that there's a chance that if Kyrie Irving doesn't get traded, that Kevin Durant also does not get traded. I think there's a chance that Kevin Durant is still on the Nets next year or for next season, just because I think what Brooklyn wants for him, teams won't give up, right?
Nope.
Like he listed the Suns and the Heat as his kind of preferred destinations. If you're the Suns, do you give up your most of your core to get Kevin Durant?
No.
When you've already got a fairly established, solid team around you, unless they can't sign DeAndre Ayton, unless they can't re-sign him because he was a big part of it, then I could see maybe you think you got to go for it. But I think for what Brooklyn wants, it's not worth uprooting a third of your team and most of your starters to get back Kevin Durant. And I know he's a good player, but I just don't think that is Kevin Durant is going -4 players, but gaining Kevin Durant going to put you automatically ahead of the Warriors? I don't think so.
No, because here's the thing. And there's another thing that we talked about the last time we discussed this was that the Suns, that's Chris Paul's team, and they have Devin Booker, who has no problem going Kobe and putting up 70 in a game. All right. That does not mesh with Kevin Durant. He needs the ball. And we saw that with Golden State. He needs the ball. And it's just one of those things where if I'm the Suns, it would be so much better in the long run, because Kevin Durant can't play forever. He's been in the league a long time. He's not going to be around in the league for as long as he sees fit, because time will start telling on him. If you're the Suns and you want to prepare a championship team for the future, you go with the future. You rebuild with people, who could start off as six man and then they come off the bench, or you draft, you do other types of trades that don't involve uprooting your team. You do stuff like that, but you don't give up predominant starters, even though they may not be Kevin Durant level superstars. You don't give them up to get this one superstar who may play a couple or 3 seasons, but once y'all start losing, he wants out again. And see, that's the thing. It's the thing that we've talked about with these last 3 guys, Westbrook, Kyrie Irving, and Kevin Durant. When this up here goes, they're done. Westbrook, if he can't play well, he's done. Kyrie, if he's not up here, he's done. If Kevin Durant starts seeing a team on the decline, he starts talking and the rumblings start talking and he's out. And it's one of those things where if you look at Miami, and I still stand by this, Jimmy Butler is a guy who gets in his own way and fights his own teammates. And he doesn't take crap from anybody, whether he's right or wrong. Kevin Durant does not fit that. And it's even then, Jimmy Butler, Bam Adebayo, Tyler Hero. Again, you have a young team with stars that are young and established in a sense of they're not bums. They're even above average. Obviously, they're good going on great players. You don't trade that and uproot that for this one guy, because let's be real. If any of these teams think that Kevin Durant is going to finish his career with them, no, because it's undoubtedly he's going to move somewhere else. Again, there's nothing wrong with that. But if you want that future, it's better to keep your stars and move forward than to bring in a big star, maybe win once or twice, he leaves, and you're back to square one again.
Yeah. And arguably worse off because, now that the NBA rewards teams for bringing these players up through their organization and drafting them and keeping them, if you take a gamble and have a guy that's not been in your organization come through, but you've given up all these guys that did, and you lose their rights, their bird rights to keep them on and give them good deals and keep them there. I mean, think about the Warriors. Clay, Steph, and Draymond came up through the Warriors organization. They were all drafted by the Warriors. And that's why, that's part of why they've been able to keep them together for 10 years.
Yep.
It's because they have those rights and the ability to pay them more because of that. Now, if they had traded those guys out, where would they be right now? Trying to sign guys like Durant to a guy, or, and keep players that are gone after 2-3 years because they can go get money elsewhere. So,
that would be an interesting NBA to see if Curry, Clay, and Draymond were split and put other places. I think, and you're 100% right. And I think that's the deal. I think Kevin Durant is becoming, and this is the truth. When you're someone like him, where it's this case where you're a superstar, you're a megastar. Well, not mega, you're a superstar. LeBron's a megastar, but KD's a superstar. You're a superstar. You're one of the greatest to ever play this game. You're one of the best scorers of all time. But when you have not been on the decline, but you've had a lot of injuries when you got to the Nets, and the team has not done what people have expected with you, Kyrie, and James Harden being there. It just wasn't what it was prophesized to be. So when teams see that and they're like, well, and even then, another perfect example of what we're talking about, Giannis Antetokounmpo. Okay, this guy was with Milwaukee when Milwaukee still was like the Utah Jazz in the sense of they weren't doing anything. They weren't bums, but they weren't good. And then he rose up and now he's becoming a superstar and his face is everywhere and his story is being told on Disney Plus, whatever the case. And like you said, it's these guys who are coming up through these systems, making a name for themselves, popping out one year and they keep it going. That's why, especially in the NBA, and this is relevant to the conversation we're having, I've noticed in the NBA, it's a lot easier to maintain your level of superstardom for the length of your career than it is in the NFL. Because in the NBA, you pop out one year and then you keep obviously you have to keep that performance, but you pop out one year, then the eyes are on you. And then you keep it up and then boom, you get the brand deals, you get noticed, then your story is being told on Disney Plus. When you're in the NFL, it's one of those things where you can have a good 3 years or maybe a good 4 but then it starts to go down because someone else is up here. So you start going down, you start declining, and then people back off of you a little bit. They recognize your talent, but it's not the same. Josh Norman is the perfect example. He was a beast when he was with Carolina that one year. And then he's like, yeah, I'm going to get this max contract when I go to the Commanders. I think he was Commanders first. And then it was, and he's like, okay, let me reestablish myself at Buffalo, back down here. So I think for Kevin Durant, and when you're in any type of basketball star, you want to get traded anywhere, you have to keep in mind that star longevity of young players lasts a long time. And if they have something already that you provide and you're older, then there's no fit for you there.
Yeah, I agree. And we'll have to see how this all plays out because there's still quite a bit of time between now and late September, October when season's going to start up. So a lot of time for something to get done. But speaking of trades getting done, how about that for a segment? NFL, the deal is finally done. We were talking about it for a long time, really ever since the Browns made the move for Deshaun Watson. And lo and behold, the Cleveland Browns agreed to trade quarterback Baker Mayfield to the Carolina Panthers for a 2024 conditional draft pick. That's right. Pick. As in
5th round.
1. Conditional draft pick.
And it was the 5th round, which says a lot about Baker and his stock.
Now, I don't hate this for the Carolina Panthers. I'm just going to go ahead and put it out there that I don't hate it. Because they basically got the deal in the deal. They basically said the Browns are going to pay 10 out of the roughly 15 million that Baker was owed. So the Panthers get him for basically nothing. Here was the Carolina depth chart at quarterback before this trade. Sam Darnold,
boo,
PJ Walker, and then they just drafted Matt Corral, who is probably going to be your game plan future starter. And they drafted Davis Cheek from Elon.
Wow.
So basically, for a 5th round pick, you get Baker Mayfield, who I think still has the potential to be a good quarterback. And the expectations are so low that, like, worst case, is he going to be worse than Sam Darnold worst case? I don't even think he's worse than Sam Darnold worst case.
No.
Like, I think worst case, he's still slightly better than Sam Darnold.
Yeah, because Sam Darnold's pretty bad.
Best case, he plays really well, and you then flip him for something. Because, like, your game plan is not, if you didn't take Matt Corral in the 1st round, you're not planning on starting him, right? I believe they took him in the 3rd round. So, or 2nd or 3rd round. So you're not planning on starting him right away.
No.
So this has pretty much no downside for the Panthers. You either play the better of Sam Darnold or Baker Mayfield, whoever works out better in camp. You keep Matt Corral, and you could even keep that person as a backup and have Matt Corral be a 3rd string. Or you can cut Darnold or Baker, but I think cutting Darnold is going to hurt the cap. We'd have to see how that plays out. PJ Walker, I think, is either getting cut or going to the practice squad, just because if you have both Baker and Darnold and Corral, I don't see how he fits in there. And then same thing with Davis Cheek. You drafted him. If he looks like he has some potential, he goes to the practice squad, or he gets cut, or gets cut if he doesn't. So for the Panthers, I don't hate it. You gave up nothing. You potentially have a lot of upside. And really, again, the expectations for this season are so low that there's really no downside if he plays poorly, right?
No. Because here's the thing. No one is expecting it's kind of like what we said with the Cavs. No one's expecting Carolina to all of a sudden take off and become one of the best teams in the NFL. And what I think the reason why the expectations are low, but it's still going to be hard for Baker Mayfield, but this will be the best chance for him to prove himself, is because think about it, okay? Think about this Carolina Panthers team, okay? And what his tools that he's going to have to deal with, because more than likely he's going to beat out Sam Darnold for the job. He is going to be dealing with a Christian McCaffrey who can't stay healthy, all right?
At least you got Chuba Hubbard.
You got Chuba Hubbard, which is good. But besides those two, your running backs, your wide receivers, there is no Steve Smith anymore. I'm not saying that they don't have any guys, but they've got some talented guys. There's the one guy that stands out. I can't remember his name.
DJ Moore.
There we go. You got DJ Moore. Okay, he's a speedster. He's got
Robbie Anderson's pretty good
hands.
too.
Robbie Anderson when he played with the Jets. So he's going to have pieces around him, but it won't be the same. Now, in my opinion, you put a Baker Mayfield on the team that Cam had when obviously talking about a Super Bowl run. When you put on the team that Cam had, you got a Greg Olsen safety net. You have a defense that had Luke Kuechly, Thomas Davis, and Josh Norman. What I'm saying is Baker is going to have the best chance to prove himself because Carolina is back to having not virtually nothing, but if you think about it, kind of like Patriots where it's no guy that's really a mainstream star besides maybe like one or two guys. Like your McCaffrey would be your Gronkowski or your Edelman, that type of deal. Everybody else has to prove themselves. And it's one of those things where he is going to have the opportunity to do something with nothing. And that's where it's a win for him or a loss, depending on how he plays. But even then, Cleveland made off scot-free with this because, yes, Deshaun Watson league's better than Baker Mayfield, but if he doesn't play, they've got Jacoby Brissett, who I think is underrated because Jacoby Brissett, when he was the Colts starter, got them to the divisional round of the playoffs, and I think a little bit past that, then they got booted. But the point being is he got the Colts to the playoffs, and then the Colts were like, yeah, Andrew Luck's coming back. Get out of here, kid. And it's like one of those things where that kid has talent, and I'm glad that because Deshaun's going to be sitting out for some amount of time, we just don't know what amount of time, that the Browns are going to have a good backup to be their starter for however long he's going to be. But this is all on Baker now. It's all on him.
But again, like I think that for him now, there's just no pressure in it, right? Like if he doesn't play well, then it's like, oh, well, you're on the Panthers, so you kind of get a pass and somebody will probably pick him up, right? Maybe he's not going to get a max deal, but somebody would probably pick him up at some point. And if he plays well, and the Panthers either keep him and maybe he makes a playoff run or something, all of a sudden he's got more offers to line up, or he gets flipped at the deadline. The Panthers get something. He goes to a team like maybe there's some like contender that's like the set going like for the 8th, 7th, 8th seed, or should I get a 6th, 7th seed in a conference, and their quarterback goes down. All of a sudden they need a quarterback. He gets flipped for something. Panthers get something out of that. And the most important thing for the Browns, I think, is that they just are finally rid of him, right?
Yeah.
There's no more media questions about what's he going to do, what's he not going to do. It's in the rearview mirror. Yeah, you still are dealing with Deshaun Watson, but at least there's not that question of, oh, well, what's Baker going to do? He's gone. You got at least something for him. You still have to pay the $10 million, but at least you got something. And then you just go from there. So
that $10 million is nothing because his contract was 19, but he chose to fork over at least $3 million, and then the Panthers are paying some of it. So, it's one of those things where I honestly think when it comes in terms of Baker Mayfield and we look at him, will he be like a Josh Rosen? No, because Josh Rosen's not playing anywhere now. Baker Mayfield, there will always be a team, in my opinion, for however long he stays active, that will use him. Because he did take the Browns to the playoffs at least one year. He has something there, potential. Yeah. The problem is he is, and you're probably going to disagree with me, but I'm going to say it, and this is the truth. It's not because he's an Okie. This is the truth when you actually look at him. Besides being bigger, besides having more drive and a better work ethic, he is an upgraded version, in my opinion, of Johnny Football in the sense of the talent is, I'm not going to say not there because like we talked about potential, but it's questionable at times. I mean, again, Johnny Football, you can say what you want about him. He had talent, but he just never cared for the game at all. I'm not saying he was the best quarterback in the world. He won a Heisman, unfortunately, but he had some talent wherever it was, whether it was running, which he's better at than Baker, and Baker's a better thrower than a runner. But at the end of the day, nothing about Baker Mayfield. There is no, and when I say this, there is no Drew Brees. It's like, man, this kid can't, move very well, but he could just bomb it and it's accurate. There is no Aaron Rodgers where he's that hybrid. He's got the skills. He's fluid in running and passing and it being a jerk all at the same time. And then there's no Tom Brady or Peyton Manning where like he's a pocket general that can just control the game anytime the ball is in his hands. It's a Johnny Manziel type. He's got a big ego. He's got some bravado behind him. He does work hard and he does have a work ethic, but there is no discernible. This is what makes Baker Mayfield good. Does that make any sense?
Yeah. But I think the other issue is how fair can that really be to Baker when he had 4 different head coaches in 3 years?
No, that's
like, it's hard. It's hard for any team to find it. And especially at the quarterback, when you're expected to be a leader and you have different coaches coming in with different systems, and then you have to learn a new system and a new playbook every single year, it's hard to really show what you can do. And I don't think it's going to be any easier going to Carolina, but
Nope.
I think if he had stability on a team that he could actually, I think he showed flashes of what he could do. And it's hard to be now. I'm not saying it could very well be that he's not consistent, and that's on him. But I think it's hard to say for sure with any certainty of it was him versus he didn't have a stable system around him.
Yeah, no, I look, man, I'm not disagreeing with that. I made that case on the Browns for years. I said a team can't get this many number ones and not be rebuilding something better. And it's because, man, the office, I never blame when the Browns went on 4 years in a row being the number 1 draft pick and then weren't doing anything. I said, okay, it's management. Because at that point, you've gotten so many top draft picks. You can't say it's the talent. You just can't. You can say that the talent's not performing to a certain level, but it's like you said, it's not all on them. The Browns have had a terrible office for years. And again, I'm not saying that Baker and Johnny Football are twin. I'm not saying that. I know that Baker has some discernible qualities that make him way much better than old Johnny Party Boy. But what I'm saying is the reality of the situation is this is the time, what we're talking about right now with him going to Carolina, to prove that. Is because, and again, if he fails, I'm not going to say he's Johnny Football Jr., but at the same time, I'm saying if this does not go well, and if this does flop over on him, he might need to get used to the idea that teams will start using him as a starter/backup, because you can't be someone at that level in the NFL who's played for a good amount of time and who has gone on a playoff run before and taken arguably the worst team in the league for several years and gotten them to a playoff run. You can't tell me that people are going to take chances on him to be a starter, but at the same time, seeing what he's done and has not done with that position with respect to the coaches and the switching and how that goes, and say, this guy's going to start on my team. I mean, we could have him sit on the bench, but I mean, because it just comes down to Baker has to play for Baker. And that's a very dangerous spot to be in as a professional athlete, because you're working on a team here, especially in football. So when you realize that you have to play for yourself and for the team that you're on, because I would be lying if I said I thought that Baker going to Carolina, he was going to think, I'm all about the Carolina Panthers. No, he's all about making sure that he can look good so that if he wants to leave Carolina, which will probably happen, he can go somewhere that, I don't know, suits him better. And I'm not saying he's knocking Carolina, and I'm not saying anybody else would think any differently. What I'm saying is Baker has to create a season for himself, not to where he's undeniable, because that ship has kind of sailed at this point, but to where people like you can be like what you just said, like, okay, we see how he's got when he's got stability around him. He can play well and he's doing his thing. Because if he doesn't, his career might change.
Yeah, I don't know if 1 year at Carolina is going to do that either. That's why I think this is such a big year. If he has a pretty good year and then can go to place with a coaching staff that's been there 3 years, 4 years, and can kind of get ingrained in that I think that maybe he has a chance. But I also think there's an alternate universe where the Browns take Josh Allen or Lamar Jackson first overall, and then Baker goes to the Bills or the Ravens and does a little bit better just because of having that stability. I think there is an alternate universe there, but who knows?
Yeah, the multiverse of madness. Oh my God. I can't wait to see the Progressive commercials change.
Yeah, because now Cleveland's not Baker's house anymore. Now you got to shoot them all in Carolina, and you got to do them all over. What a headache!
Yeah, what a headache. Speaking of headaches,
man, we are on fire with this. Let's hit this. Let's hit the sports adjacency, and we really shouldn't be laughing about that because it's not really a funny topic. But WNBA star Brittney Griner, who former national champion on Baylor and has done very well in the WNBA so far. I believe it was a couple months ago she was arrested in Russia because she plays in the Russia Women's Basketball League for possession of hashish oil, which is illegal in Russia. I believe above at a certain amount. I believe it was like 0.7 grams. That's when it becomes illegal. And she had packed cartridges to bring with her. She claims she didn't mean to, but she did plead guilty yesterday to that particular crime. Now, the main issue here is that I don't think anybody can deny that this is being, what's the word? Not showcased more. Russia's making a much bigger deal out of it because she plays in the WNBA and she is fairly well known. And with the current political tensions between the US and Russia, I don't think anybody can say that this is not part of it. Yes, it's illegal. Are they making a bigger deal out of it, and are they extorting her to try and get something out of the US for her safe return? Absolutely. I don't think there's any way that that's not how this is going down. Is she also at fault for bringing in something into the Russia that she knows is illegal? And did she get rightfully arrested for breaking the law? Also, yes. This can coexist at the same time. Should she have known better than to bring, even if she did it inadvertently? I think that, she's been playing there long enough where it's not some surprise, right?
She's been playing there for 5 years.
Yeah.
And
so
at some point, you know the laws of that country.
Yeah. It's not like they snuck this up on her.
Yeah.
It's not like, and so I think this coexists in both ways where, yes, she was wrong and she broke the law and the Russians had every right to arrest her. Are the Russians then also extending this trial and making a big deal out of it just because she is a U.S. citizen and plays in the WNBA? And are they trying to get something out of the U.S. for her return? Also, yes.
Yeah, especially with the point that you made about this being, all over the news and things of that nature, and the crime is it's not really that big of a deal to us, at least with our culture. It's not a culture shock. With Brittney Griner, I think part of the reason she's also well known, despite her play on the court, is she's a very controversial figure in the realm of domestic violence, because she's had her cases there in which the WNBA had to suspend her and things like that. She's been keeping a good record up until this point. But I think what this comes down to, when you look at it from a political standpoint, first, is Russia's trying to make a statement. Like you said, there's no doubt about that. They're trying to make a statement at this girl's expense because, I don't know the sentencing, how that works for that type of crime in Russia, but it's hashish oil. She didn't murder anyone. But again, that's coming from the perspective of a Canadian American, which in where we live today and right now, that is not a big deal. Whereas in other countries, drugs and other things of that nature is akin to, I don't know, maybe you murdered sometimes. It just depends. Different laws, different places. As far as Brittney Griner goes, I think this is one of those things where it comes down to, from a social perspective, that was the political perspective. From a social perspective, you don't really see, and I don't think we're going to, you don't see a lot of people clamoring that this is wrong. And I think from what I've seen, because it's like what you said, is it Russia trying to make a statement? Yes. But at the same time, did she give them the opportunity to do that to her? 100%. You can't say if, ands, or but about that. She brought the illegal substance, which in a lot of people's opinions, and including mine, she's been doing for a while, even though her testimony was that she just was throwing stuff in her bag and packed it by accident. I think and my dad made this joke, and it is kind of funny. It's not a good look for you to go into a trial for a drug charge in a Jimi Hendrix t-shirt. It doesn't help you. But
that depends. Do you think the Russian judges know who Jimi Hendrix is right off the bat, and they're like, hold on a second here?
You know what? I think that'll give her a pass, that they may not know who Jimmy is, but if they do, didn't help. But in all seriousness, I think what it comes down to, when you look at it from all angles here, is there's really, because in a lot of cases, like the American soldiers that were captured in Ukraine and they're held prisoner in Russia, we can uproar about that, and we can try to fight for them to come back. I don't know their status or anything, so if I'm wrong about it, let me know. I don't know the status on that. But as far as she goes, it's really kind of cut and dry, unfortunately, for her. Okay, did you bring it? Okay, are these yours? Yes. Is it illegal in there? Yes.
Well, of course, the Russians are prosecuting her for the larger crime of trafficking large amounts in, which there's no evidence of as far as we know. But of course, the deal is with the Russian courts is, just because she pleaded guilty, the judge will have to read the full case file into record, which that could take several weeks or months just by that itself. Despite the fact that she pled guilty, the judge still has to read everything into file and into the full court. So that process by itself is going to take, a long time. And she's facing up to 10 years in prison if she's convicted of large scale transportation of drugs, which I think this is where it's like, okay, most people wouldn't say that bringing a cart of hashish oil is not large scale transportation of drugs. That's where the Russians are really kind of like, okay, we can kind of play around with this if we want to and try and get some kind of political advantage there. But yeah, I mean, what more can you say about it? Really, if she had just been traveling there and it was like her first season there and it kind of snuck up on her because she didn't bother to look up the rule, I'd say, okay, you probably should have, but they probably, I could see them pulling a sneaky. She's been playing there 5 years. She knows the rules. And I think you also have to look at it like, okay, how Russia and the US are within the last 5 years. Their tensions in the last 5 years. It's not like you're sneaking it into, let's say Canada, it was illegal. Like US and Canada have pretty good. It's not like US and Canada.
No.
It's completely different. And you have to have that thought process too of, I'm going into essentially hostile territory, politically speaking.
Yep.
I should be doing the absolute minimum amount of troublemaking possible.
No, 100%. Russia is one of the last places as an American that you ever want to get caught doing something wrong. And I'm not going to turn this into, the beating up on Russian prison hour, but I can only imagine that Russian prison looks like what it looked like in Black Widow. I'm just saying, a Russian prison sounds horrible. I'd rather be in prison in Detroit. But it's one of those things, like you said.
Shots fired at Detroit. Oh my God. I was like, on the one hand, you're like, okay. And then on the other hand, I'm like, dang, okay. Like you're just putting Detroit up here and like Russia here. Oh my goodness.
But no, see, that's the thing is just, and that joke really has its own message in it, and is that we know that there are rough American prisons, right? And we know that, especially in today's climate, states aren't getting along and things of that, and state governments and things like that. So there's already that over here. And when we're dealing with the Russia thing, and then Ukraine and Russia, prayers to Ukrainians and things of that nature. So like you said, when I saw the report, I was like, what did she just do to her life? And in Russia, of all places, you want to get arrested? Like, that's just one of those things where you can't put yourself at the mercy of people who, like you've stated articulately several times, who can play around with this any way they want to. Because who's going to stop them?
Yeah.
It's just one of those things where I akin this to, and it's very, very loose, but I will still akin this to Deshaun Jackson when he posted that Hitler quote on his Instagram. You remember that, like during the NFL season? You don't remember that?
No, hold up. What?
Oh my God. Yeah, no, he was reading some book, and it had a quote and he posted something on his Instagram story. It had a quote from Hitler in it.
He highlighted a quote attributed to Hitler and shared anti-Semitic quotes from Nation of Islam leader Luis Farrakhan in a series of Instagram posts. Monday being 2 years ago, like in July.
Yeah. When I say I akin that to this, what I mean by that is
you should know that posting a Hitler quote on your Instagram is going to be a bad idea.
Boom, same thing. You made my point for me. Exactly.
Yes. Just like you should know that sneaking any kind of cannabis, hashish oil, whatever, into Russia where it's legal is going to be a bad idea. Now, you may not get caught every time. If Deshaun Jackson maybe hadn't actually posted on Instagram where it said Hitler said and then highlighted the quote, if he just did the quote, maybe nobody would have called him on it. But the fact that you did, hey, by the way, I'm just going to post this very clearly where it said Hitler said this. Like, come on, man. That is come on, man 101.
Come on, man. But exactly, that's why I pinned it to it loosely, just because you have to, well, for one, have common sense. Two, you have to know the climate in America, which, I mean, I wish we treated other forms seriously like we do this. We take anti-Semitism very seriously because it's wrong. All forms of racism, sexism, whatever, just wrong. It's horrible. So for you to not even be thinking, and even then, this makes it even more akin to the Brittney Griner situation and shows how they're similar. You play with Jewish players. The most prevalent one is Julian Edelman at the time. And you're going to post something like that. Just like with Brittney Griner, you're going to go into Russia, not keeping in mind the political climate that we have and the ill will and the feelings that are bad between Russia and the US. You're going to go over there with this illegal substance and get arrested.
Yep.
Common sense.
Yep.
Oh, boy.
Well, there you have it. We do. I mean, I hope she gets home safe. Obviously,
of course,
I am fully aware that she broke the law, but 10 years is obviously way overkill. She shouldn't be there that long, and hopefully the U.S. can figure out some way to get her home safely.
And remember, it's 10 years in a Russian prison.
10 years in a Russian prison. Yeah. That's
Detroit.
That's a lot more than I wish on anyone. So, like I said, I really hope she gets back, but you got to look at it from every perspective possible. Well, thank you very much for watching the summer Sidecard. We are in the dog days of summer, still a couple months, about a month and a half, 2 months left before we get back in the studio. But we'll keep bringing you the sports news from all across the globe. So until next time, Ryan Baldwin and Baker